Of course, last week was Desus Mero. They came on the show, and I pretty much just said what I felt, you know. And as a husband, and as a father, as a family man, as my wife being so beautiful and just so loyal and so kind and holds me down the way that a woman should. You know, somebody said something about her that I thought was disrespectful, and I brought it up, and that was it. And I'm not going to go into a whole long dissertation of why and how and all that. Just know that if you come or say something disrespectful to my family or my wife, I'm going to make sure that you understand how I feel about it. That's pretty much it.
Okay. So,
because at the end of the day, you know, people say, well, you know, if you felt they were disrespecting you, you were disrespecting her when you cheated. And you're right. I was disrespecting her when I cheated. And we talked about it and we made amends, and that was that. But nobody else ever will disrespect my wife and not hear from me. That's just how I feel.
Okay. I mean, it's a whole conversation. There's a lot to be said about it. But if we're not going to discuss it.
No, we're not going to discuss it. That's just how I feel.
There's nothing really to add to it.
What?
No, I'm just I'm going back and forth with I have a lot of thoughts about it.
Right.
You know what I mean? So you said something, so I'm just not responding. So
right.
I'm not adding to it.
No, I don't want you to respond. We're not going to address it. I addressed it. It's over. I said it to their face like a man, like I would want my kids to do. And this is something that we tell our kids, and for everybody out there listening, we always tell our kids that if you can say something behind somebody's back,
right,
make sure you can say it to their face. And it has nothing to do with the Desus Mero and all that other stuff. That's just how we were raised and how we talk to each other. That when they go to school and they can say something behind somebody's back, make sure when you're in the face, you have that same energy and you can say something to them. That's just being a man or being a woman.
Or don't say it.
Or don't say it at all.
Or keep it to yourself.
Absolutely.
You never say something about someone behind their back that you're not able to say to their face. And that's not to say that, and I'm just talking about in normal life, I'm not, I'm taking away from what happened on the radio.
Right.
It's not to say that if you're having a conversation with your friend, if you do say something about somebody or if you express an opinion, it doesn't mean that, the next day you have to go knocking on that person's door or send a text or make a phone call. Mm-hmm. But if the case arises, you have to be prepared to be able to say something to someone's face. And I've made that my business for the greater portion of my life. I never say something about somebody that I can't say to them when they're standing in front of me. And I can't act as though I like someone when I don't. Because that's a characteristic that I loathe in other people, fakeness.
Well, you know what? One thing, and not to cut you off, but that's one thing that I've learned from you. If you know Gia is the type of person, if she doesn't like you or she feels a way about you, she will tell you to your face. And most people say that,
but they don't do it.
No, I'm serious. I see it all day long. I see it on radio. I see it when I do interviews. Most people say that, but when they get in front of the person, it's, oh no, it's this. Oh, it was jokes.
They cop please. And they backpedal, or they just shut the bleep up and don't say anything at all.
And I noticed that about you. If you want that action from Gia will give you that action. And I've seen you with old friends. I've seen you with teachers. I've seen it with anybody. Like if you don't like what somebody has done to you, me, your child, or something that somebody say, you will approach them face to face or get on the phone and be like this, that, and the other. And I respect that about you, because I wasn't always like that. If I didn't like confrontation when I was younger, and I always thought that if it was confrontation, I would use my hands. I was quick to use my hands. Like I'm going to swing because I don't want to get swung on. That's
right. Well, that I know about you.
That's always what I've been.
Right.
And that's to this day. Like if I feel a confrontation coming on, and that's why I don't like to get into confrontations, because people are quick to sue. Mm-hmm. But back when we were kids, you could swing on somebody, have a fight, and then say peace and keep it moving. But that's one thing I would say about you that I've always appreciated. That we always have somebody that talks shit behind your back. We always have somebody that says some foul shit or some left shit or some whatever. But you have always been the person that says, you know what, I don't like this person because of this, and I'm going to tell her in her face so she knows. Right. I'll tell you a quick story, something that I found funny. Shout to Joe Budden. Joe Budden has his own podcast, and we know Joe Budden pretty good. He used to come to our house to record his records. I was on tour with him. One of his co-hosts was saying some funny shit about me, talking shit about me, and people talk about shit about me all day. I don't really care. It's actually kind of funny. It shows that they are kind of envious, like they want to be in that situation. To really talk about somebody and to have that feeling means that you're really thinking about the person. So when I get it, I kind of laugh. It kind of makes me work harder. And then they called to be on the Breakfast Club.
Crazy.
And I was like, wait a minute.
That's crazy to me.
I was like, wait a minute. So you shit on me, but then you want to use my platform to promote your shit.
It's kind of like.
I was like, that doesn't make sense.
Hold on. You know what just came to mind? It's kind of like you walk your dog and you let your dog bleep on my lawn and you don't pick it up. Then later on that evening, you knock on my door to borrow sugar.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you don't
get the bleep out of here.
If you don't fuck with me, you don't fuck with me.
Then you don't bleep with me. That's it.
But it's cool.
That's it.
But that's fine.
But that's how your industry works.
And that's
how your industry works.
You're
and
right.
It's crazy to me. If you don't bleep with me, don't call me and ask me to use my platform for anything.
I agree.
Period.
I agree. But
don't come knocking on my door and asking me for sugar.
But don't get your
and then
panties
hold
in a
on. Let me
bunch
tell
when
you.
I say,
But
no.
no. Let me tell you. But you know what they do in your industry? They'll be like, but you know what, Envy? Hold on. Let me go pick up my dog's poop off the lawn, and then are we good? No, we're not good because your intention wasn't good to begin with, and you shouldn't have let your dog poop on my lawn to begin with.
Exactly.
Period.
See, but
people have it so messed up. And I don't understand it.
See, but that's
common
the thing.
sense is common sense.
See, but that's the thing. People don't have common sense, and people are scared to stand up and everything. People don't think outside the box. And when he made those statements on the podcast, which was a while ago,
the co-host,
yeah, his name is Rory. When he made those comments, and then when they called, and I seen his name on the list to come up to do an interview, I'm sitting there like, nah, B. But it wasn't even that. See, I called Joe and I said, Joe, your co-host wants to come on the show? Nah, B. And I told him the reason why.
Yeah.
And he was like, you're absolutely right. But you see, I'm not the type to say, yo, nah, just dead it. No, I'm going to tell you why, because I want you to know why. And I don't care how you feel. And you got
to be a stand-up person.
But the crazy thing about it is, when I spoke to Joe, Joe was like, no, you're absolutely right. I couldn't even believe that he called to ask to be on the show with what he said. See, but the problem is that goes back to what I was saying, that there is no repercussion for what people say. And that goes to social media, right? Take it back to when we were kids. If somebody said something disrespectful about you, you seen them the next day and you had to face them.
Right.
Whether it was a fight, whether it was a conversation, whether it was a story, you had to get in front of that. Now with social media and all these things that's going on, you don't have to do that anymore. You can make up fake pages and say what you want to say and keep it moving and run like a little bitch. That's what people are doing. And that's the bad thing. And that's also why these kids are fucked up, because they don't have to face their fears.
Right.
They don't have to face their problems.
Right. Like you'll look at your social media and you'll see a foul comment, and then the person has 2 posts. They're following 400 people.
Right.
And they have 2 followers.
Right.
It's crazy because that person isn't man or woman enough to put a face behind their foul comment. But they have their own Instagram, but when they want to go trolling and leaving negative comments, they are not enough of a stand-up person to put their face behind their negative comment, which means that they are cowards. And you can't take their comments seriously. And it's such a shame, especially in a world of bullying and all of the young kids that are taking it to heart, and that in a lot of cases want to take their own lives or sink into a depression because they're basing their self-worth on people whose faces they can't see.
Correct. Right. But that's the problem. But the good thing about it is if you have kids out there and you have kids that are getting older, these are learning situations where you should tell your kids and show your kids everything that's going on, like with the Desus Mero situation. Yeah, the first thing I pulled Logan up and I told Logan and showed him exactly what I did. And I said, you know why I did that? And he was like, why? I said, because as a man, as a father, my only job is to protect and provide for this family, to make sure this family is straight and nobody disrespects. And I told him, when you get married and you have children, No matter what anybody else says, you do what you feel from the heart. And that's the main thing. And I would say this, and you instilled that in me, which is dope, because the way you are in this world about people, I guess because you're kind of coming into the industry, opposed to me being in the industry so long and seeing everything, how it changes. But people have lost their honor. People have lost their, I don't want to say call it loyal, but they lost their, it's their honor, their way about themselves. People are rather trade being right for a check. You know what I'm saying? Like being a stand-up person for being a check. And I see that more and more for getting a check, and I see that more and more and more in this world. Not even this industry, in this world.
Or to be popular.
Or to be popular.
Or to be popular, to have people follow you or stand behind you or like you.
Correct.
I don't know. I've never been a person that.
And mind you, guys, we weren't talking about this. This wasn't.
This is just a real conversation.
It just kind of just went left.
I've never in my life prioritized people liking me.
Right.
You know? I hope that people like me. Right. But I've never prioritized it. Instead, I prioritize trying to do the right thing and trying to be a woman of God. And hopefully, as a result of those things, people will like me. But if they don't, and it's for the wrong reasons, then I feel that that's just something that comes with the territory.
Correct.
Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Because I try to reason everything out. And I'm sorry, I know that we said we weren't going to do this, but I'm going to have to ask you a couple of questions because, because there are just some things that I have feelings about and that I think need to be cleared up, especially regarding the Desus Mero thing. I think it's a couple of things that you need to say out loud.
Okay.
Because I did go through some comments and I couldn't read them. I'm a comment I read comments.
Absolutely,
but it was too many. I couldn't read all of them.
Right.
But there were just things that were brought up and reasonings that some of your followers had that I just want you to answer so that it's clear.
Ask me.
One of those things was, and I'm sorry for going left because I know we weren't going to talk about it.
Don't matter.
One of them was envy. How do you get so upset that someone, quote unquote, disrespected your wife when it's basically you and your teams or you and your co-host job to do the same thing every day, and you disrespect females on occasion on your show? How do you answer that? I know the answer, but for listeners.
Well, first of all, on this show, people people like to group people on our show.
I know.
So if Charlamagne gives somebody donkey today, people automatically felt I said the same thing, or
it's the same sentiment.
Or
for
my
you.
sentiment was definitely the same. I don't know if people realize, but even on the show, especially in the last 5 years, 6 years, I've been like the pusher of love. You know, and I'll just go through, when Juju and Cameron were having problems, I was really like, y'all need to get back together. Y'all need to work it out. When Tamar and Vince came on the show, I was like, y'all really need to work it out. If y'all can, try to work it out. That's who I've been. I don't try to disrespect anybody. Like, I'm real. Like, if I feel like somebody did something wrong, I will tell you. But when it comes to disrespecting somebody, and especially when I don't know something about it, I try to get all the facts. I will never try to disrespect anybody maliciously. That's not my intention. That's not my job on the show. That's not what I try to do. Definitely not.
And regarding anyone's wife, for instance, have you ever been in a situation where you had to, or you felt that your opinion was negative about someone's wife?
One time we were talking, it was T.I. and Tiny. We were talking about something, and I think I might have said something, and T.I. called me on air and said this, that, and the other, and he was right. But that was 7-8 years ago, and I made that mistake, and I apologized to him on air, and I never brought it back up, nor have I ever did anything ever like that. Never.
And I also took it kind of from the perspective that Tiny is a star in and of herself.
Yeah, no, Tiny is a celebrity. Tiny is a superstar. And at one time, Tiny was bigger than T.I. And when we were critiquing a show that she had on television. So it just wasn't out the blue that I seen T.I. and I seen his wife walking by and I said, no, that wasn't the situation. I was critiquing a show that she was on 6-7 years ago that had nothing to do with T.I. And T.I. felt the way about it and he came up and we spoke about it. We all talked about it on the Breakfast Club. There was no beef or nothing like that, but we had a great conversation.
But from your perspective, it's not as though you were disrespecting someone's wife.
No.
It was someone who was a star in her own right.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. So that's one thing.
Uh-huh.
And how do you address people that say that what was said, and it wasn't just about me, it was about you. It was a whole segment that they did about our appearance.
I think it was 17 to 18 minute segment
about our appearance on the reel. So
Correct.
It wasn't just like that one comment.
Right.
But how do you address people that say that it was just a joke or it wasn't that serious?
I mean, you can't tell somebody what's serious and what's not serious. And people joke me all day long. I mean, I'm a radio host. People make fun of people. I make fun of people. It happens. But
because you never want to be seen as a hypocrite.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Like you can't do it and then dish it and not be able to take it.
Absolutely.
Right.
So when, you do a 17-minute segment talking about me being on the reel and the things that you're saying about me being on the reel isn't true, you're making jokes, cool. But now when you mention something about my wife and she knows DJ MB checks or whatever the statement was, that was the statement actually, I just found it, I was pissed off about it. And the reason I was pissed off about it is I feel like people don't know people's stories and they automatically just make assumptions, And I know a lot of people might look at your Instagram and see a lot of the fly stuff that you have and the fly shit that you do own. And people feel, oh, she's only there for the check. And that makes me laugh all the time. And I'm like, you don't know that she was with me when I was 15 years old when she had the money and she was supporting me. You don't know that she was the one that was my security when I was driving around dropping off mixtapes. You don't know that, when they say the checks, you don't know that, if we got a divorce, you actually would have got more money by leaving me than by staying. So you staying had nothing to do with the money. It had to do with what you felt was right. It had to do with God coming in our lives. It had to do with you feeling that I was actually a changed person and us really wanted to work it out. It had to do with those things. It had nothing to do with money. Because I tell everybody all the time, I'm like, if she wanted to leave, shit, she'd be good. You at least people, I'd have to pay alimony, child support, alimony. You'd have a house. You'd have
stupid.
Like it wouldn't be, but people just like to assume because they really don't know, and they don't know anything, and people are so much of a follower that they just listen to what everybody says.
Well, there were comments and people did say, well, it's true. She does know those DJ MB chicks. That doesn't mean that they were trying to paint her as a gold digger. Yes, they were. And if you think anything other than that, then you're sheep. Period. Because there'd be no reason for them to bring up money or anything related to money, hence checks, if that wasn't the insinuation.
And if they didn't feel that way, they wouldn't apologize. They wouldn't apologize on air if they didn't feel that way. Of course not.
Of course that was an insinuation, or else they would have defended what they said from that standpoint.
Right.
So anyone that says, okay, that wasn't the insinuation, then I don't want to be disrespectful, but I'll just say, come on.
Right.
That was clearly the insinuation. She's there for the money. And I think, and I'm going to be honest, I think that it kind of hit a nerve with you because that has been something that people did assume without knowing our story. Right. People assumed, okay, yeah, who's going to leave that money? Who's going to leave that lifestyle? And then from your perspective, okay, well, it's cheaper to keep her, all of that stuff. And as though finances and a lifestyle are the only things that people value. And what bothers me from my own standpoint is that devalues you because it's as though you have nothing else to offer besides a check.
Exactly.
And you have so much more to offer. And just like you said, had I left, I would have been possibly in a better situation financially. So
I mean, you don't have to work now, but you would never have to work.
But the point is that
Birkins every other day.
Just logically,
right.
It's a farce.
Correct.
But what I didn't like about it was that the fact that it devalued you and it took away from you and all of your other contributions as a man that have nothing to do with finances.
Right.
Do you know?
Absolutely. And, with the situation, I really don't care what people think.
I'm sorry. I have to interrupt. There's something else that bothered me about that.
What?
And then you can continue. I'm sorry. You know what bothers me about that?
Tell me.
People that listen to The Breakfast Club and also watch their show. Okay, so I'm talking about that group of people that watch both. If they would have come on your show and you sat there and smiled in their face, you know what the comments would have been the next day?
What?
Oh, those guys disrespected you and your family, and you sat and laughed in their face and didn't check them.
Correct.
And didn't say anything.
Correct.
Envy's of this, envy's of that. Oh, you got me to call you Envy. Envy's of this,
yes.
Envy's of that. But then when you do confront them and speak your piece and tell them what you think, then it's, oh, Envy can't take a joke. Oh, Envy's soft. Oh, it doesn't take much to ruffle Envy's feathers. It's like with you, and I know that, it comes up every now and then in conversation.
What?
But I feel as though people don't want you to win. And that's the truth, because in that specific situation, it's like you couldn't win for losing.
Yeah, but
it's like for you, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't.
But that's how people are.
You sit there and you make nice, and you don't say anything. You keep your feelings to yourself. You keep everything cool. You keep everything professional. You go through with the interview. You ask them the questions. You smile in their face. You champion their show. You pat them on the back. You say a couple jokes. You send them on their merry way. And then what? Oh, yeah, Envy didn't even stick up. Oh, did you see what he said?
Right.
You see what they said? He didn't even say anything to that man in his face, blah, blah, blah.
But you
say something and then you're wrong.
But this is the thing.
That irritated me.
But this is the thing. That's how people are. And see.
People are always going, and this is why.
I've been on radio.
Babe, this is why you can never put other people's opinions of you over your own people's opinions or the people that love you's opinions.
Right.
Because people are damn near hardwired to find the fault in other people instead of finding the positivity in other people.